So there are more than 150 countries are developing countries. And it is their issues that we are focusing on in MDGs, and when SDGs comes, we try to include all countries. So that is the world in which we are living. And when we think of developed countries, what are our perceptions? Or developing countries, what are our perceptions? In order to understand the major events of the place of developing countries in the world, we can see that during the 100 years, in the 1900s, how countries have become more and more, developed and developing, how it is, divided. So we have in 1914, 1918, there was a First World War, and there is a Second World War after 1945, Great Depression in 1933. When we speak of Lehman shock and its effects, people would speak about, oh, this happens only once in 100 years. When they speak of 100 years, it is this Great Depression that they are talking about. And so without peace, there is no development. We can look at Ukraine or all the countries around the world that are, where there is very less peace. Development is very little. So peace is a must, and United Nations, in spite of all its plus and minus, I think we should appreciate at least the world, did not start another world war. I think that is due to the United Nations' main role. We don't want another world war, and therefore we need to fight for peace, and United Nations is the one place where all leaders, whether you like it or not, you can come into one place and talk. I don't think there are many other places in the world where we could come together and talk, all the countries. So that is it's a dialogue, place of dialogue. And, with 1947, as we all know, India got independence, and that is where the end of colonial period. And as the countries became, independent, we felt that there is a gap between developed and developing countries in the political and economic systems. And so after 1947, after the Second World War, the world was divided into two. We could not even say globalization. You could not cross. If you go to Berlin, Germany, now the wall is full, but at the center of the road, it is written, Berlin Wall was here. And there are a lot of photos on the side showing people who have been killed trying to cross from east to the west. And so the wall itself is very simple. But if you cross, you are shot dead. And their photos are kept there. And that is what, so the world was divided into two with the United States and its allies. And they have a political system called democracy and economic system called capitalism. And USSR and its allies, and communism was their political system, and socialism was the economic system that they followed. And so developing countries, they could not join either side. So we called ourselves non-aligned movement. But we know it did not have much power. So it remained either joining either side. So we did not make much development also during this period, at least from my analysis. So after the fall of Berlin Wall in 1989, a new world economic order, we call it globalization, came into existence, and we are trying to live in that place, and that is where the fall of Berlin Wall is one reason why President Putin now would like to have all the former countries into his bloc, and I don't think that is going to happen. And that is where the big, the war that continues now. So we also become, global citizen. We have a new awareness. So when we look at developing countries and its development, we need to go through what is our past history. Not to say that India has a 5,000-old history. No. what did history done to its development for any country? So you begin with that question, what is history done with this particular country? In its economic development, was it plus or minus? And then look at our own, now we are more than 75 years after independence. We cannot blame our history, but we can look at our policies and say what is the plus and minus in the policies, and then look at the future vision. So India has got its own, the 5-year plans for a long time. Now, the new plans are there, and the world vision is based on MDGs and SDGs, and that's why I try to concentrate on these two topics today. So you can imagine Sudan as 193rd UN member state. How is that country and what is its history? What are the present policies? What is the future for a child that is born today in that particular country? So when we look at the countries, we also look at the population growth. So where are the population? Japan, their population is going down very fast. So this graph just shows that in 1804, we were only 1 billion in 1804. And in about 100 years, we became 8 billion. That is a problem with population growth. Not population is good. The pace in which it is fast moving. So we were only 250 million in AD 1. Now we are in 2024. So we were only 250 million. And from there, it took about 1800 years to become 1 billion. And then it took about 100 years to become 2 billion. And then you go more and more up, you see that every 13 years, 1 billion is added today. And that is why we are worried about the population growth. So this, when I was preparing, I was just looking at, you can look later on worldometers. It is a dynamic graphics, and you can see how many children are born just now in this second, how many died. It is shown like that. And so we have, increased. And all this, the projection is by 2100, we will be about 11 billion. And most of this population, India became, overtook China, and we all know that. And so the problem is, okay, we have a population, full planet, empty plates. That's another, it's okay. Full planets, empty plates. So we have our planets, because of the population increase, is full and more. But many of them having an empty planet. This Lester Brown, in his book, Full Planet, Empty Place, I like it very much, the new geopolitics of food security. And he is an environmentalist and development related topics. So it's quite interesting. So the topic speaks for itself. The population growth and what does it mean? And so whether we are able to handle it. There are a lot of various gaps among the developing nation. I will check one by one. So today since I'm focusing on environment and development from the SDGs perspective, I just want to ask you the environment and development. Whether poverty causes environmental degradation or environmental degradation causes poverty. Can ask, each one affects in its own way, and that's why these two topics are so interlinked. We cannot talk about simply development without considering environmental protection. And we cannot talk about environmental protection from a developing country perspective without development. And so who will protect the environment when there is such a great problem with poverty and hunger? And so the poverty as a major cause and effect of global environmental problems. If you are interested, you can look at the TED talk, Let the Environment Guide Our Development. It's a nice presentation he has made there. So again, when we look at the, one of the economists, Rostow, some of you, or if you are in economics, you must have heard his name, and he has given about 5 stages of development, and they are, the most of our, big economies begin with the first stage of traditional society, and then slowly during the feudal times move into transitional stage, and then a kind of takeoff, slow industrialization, growing investment, regional growth, political change. Most of the developing countries, I would say, are in the third stage takeoff, including India. So we are there, and my question is, since we are looking at the big topic, a developed India, how many years? Where is India now? And how many years we will take to reach to stage 4? And that's the big question. It's a very simple thing to understand how a country can become a developed. So most of the developing countries today are in the takeoff stage, I would say. There are very few in the, stage 2 and things like that. There may be some variations, but to reach drive to maturity, that means there is, the economy can stand on its own. Even if an economic crisis hit, we can still stand on its own. That is the drive to maturity. And the stage 5, when he wrote, he calls high mass consumption, but probably today he would write as, sustainable consumption. I don't think we have enough resources for high mass consumption, but we would go for sustainable consumption. So various data, when we look at, we can see that we have also reduced, the poverty reduction has happened in India, and most of the world during the MDG 2015 time. So the various, we need to look at what is extreme poverty, and where in the MDG period by 2015 we were looking at the reducing the extreme poverty and hunger, and somehow we reduced. The objective was to reduce to half, and we were able, India also was able to achieve it. But it is always remember $1 a day. That is the criteria. And in the SDG, it is end poverty in all its forms everywhere by 2030. So that is another characteristic for a developed country. Will we be able to end poverty in all its forms everywhere? And here, there are a lot of data. When you go into, SDG pages, you can find United Nations SDG or country-wise SDG analysis. You can find a lot of data. And this is one where you can see that, the South Asia, even the data is too low that they did not even, produce it. The other places still lagging behind. So for several regions, there has been quite a big, we were able to reduce from, if it was 50, reduce to 25. That was our objective, and we were able to, achieve it. So half the proportion of people whose daily income is less than today, poverty line is in 1990 to 2000, poverty line was $1 a day. Today, with that $1, if you want to buy, you need 1.91. So therefore, World Bank increased the poverty line to 1.91. So, it is just below $2. So that is how poverty line you need to look at. And you have to ask, what percentage of Indian population living around less than $2 a day. And, our vision of being a developed, and this data, we need to go very, very far, as you can see in these ones. Look at, China was a major player in reducing, achieving the objective. Look at the number. China was able to lift 730 million people out of poverty. just a couple of years ago, they declared themselves as a poverty-free country. I have many Chinese students in my class, so they sometimes tell me there are still pockets, there are poverty, but according to the government, they think they have removed poverty. In one place when I visited, they have said we will put poverty in the museum, so it is not on the street or in the place, and they have shown a map and things like that in that museum. Let us put poverty in the museum. That is there. So India, during the same period, we were only able to lift up 170 million. So now we have overcome China in population. That means we have more people living below poverty line. So various disparities, when you look at various regions, so sub-Saharan Africa, and those regions are still very much lagging behind, but they are taking very serious steps to overcome all these difficulties. So these are some of the data that you can look at it. The proportion has decreased, but the actual number is increasing. The proportion sometimes percentage-wise when we look at, but when we look at the real number, it's another story. And so again, to get a decent work, what sort of work we can get, and working middle class tripled in some parts, and what is it? Decent work for all. And that's also again another SDG objective. And so these are MDGs and SDGs: extreme poverty, slowly developing the two aspects. So the global number of extreme poor are moving 1990, 2015, and now what we have before us is this. So again another thing is good infrastructure for any country to develop. India, whenever I am from Kerala, so I have been looking at Kerala's metro project from the beginning for a research study, and now this is another data that speaks about the world's population increasingly urban. 80% live within 1 hour of a city, and like that the world population, people are able to move, the mobility. Global city accessibility, how much time it take?
Laptop and see and speak into the mic. Okay. When you turn there, they are finding difficult. You can control this. There is a power.
So the global city accessibility, the travel time we take. That means these all affect our productivity. That is the whole point. How much time we take to travel and things like that. In Tokyo, where I live, there are during the day there are 20 million people in Tokyo. During night there are only 12 million. 8 million people travel to Tokyo every day and go home in the evening, and nobody has complaints. Very fine infrastructure, metro system. That's one of the miracle. I always think miracle economy of Japan we speak. The miracle is that transportation, the facility that they have created, that sort of thing, that people can move, come to work, and go home. But we cannot do that. So that is the gap that we feel when we look at all these various things. It's not moving.
We'll get a laptop also for you. Okay. Change it here. You can look at the laptop and speak. Then you control the slides.
Yeah. It doesn't. So. Okay. So look at this slide. This is in Japanese. This is the vision of Japan today. Okay, they call it Society 5. So we are moving from various, like the agrarian revolution. Today we are moving into the 5th revolution. That's what they call. The first revolution is the hunter economy, hunting society, where we all began, the traditional society. Then you move into agrarian society, the second stage, second revolution. Then the third one is on industrial revolution, and where there are a lot of, industries, companies.
Clear and control. Then you control that slide. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the third one is the industrial society. Okay, and then now mostly we are in the fourth one, where it is mostly computer and innovation and things like that. And now they are aiming at a smart society. That's what they call it, Society 5, where they are speaking about AI, robot, IoT, big data. These are the characteristics of Society 5, and they are aiming at a child born today should live up to the age of 100. That is their objective. They are already 86 years old is their average age. There are thousands of people who are beyond 100 in Japan. That's the only country, I think. There are thousands. More or less they manage on their own. I know a friend of mine, their father is about 104 just today. So there are many people, they are living beyond. And 80 is not a retirement age. For them, they all travel. As I told you, the traveling is very convenient. They can move. So they are already, their average life expectancy is 86. So a child born today will live up to that. In India, what is the life expectancy for, what is the infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, and the life expectancy that comes up at the end. So you look at like that and see, for a developed country, how much we can make our people live. So this is the vision that Japan has now. A Society 5, a modern, a smart society where every child born today would be living up to the age of 100. That is what they are looking at. So what is the objective of development? We are talking about DGs, SDGs. So here it says human capabilities by expanding the choices. So first of all, we need to expand our capability so that we can expand our choices. So the capability approach of Amartya Sen is very important here. Capability is the freedom to achieve valuable beings and doings. We are all valuable in ourselves. As a being, we are valuable. So what sort of capability do you have in order to achieve, to do certain things? So according to the capability, you are able to do certain things. And so here, he considered freedom as one of the key elements for him, and using the valuable beings and doings, and calls these as functionings. And so there are various, valuable beings and doings and functionings, and these are all the ends of human life. They could be elementary, just able to move, or complex, self-respect, participation in community life, ability to appear in public without shame. So poverty has many faces, not only just lack of income. They find it difficult to come in front of people to talk, the ability to appear in public without shame. So these are he calls it complex, then general, capability to be nourished, capability to drink something that you consider specific. So all these are his idea of, the capability approach. So the capabilities contract as well as expand. So if you use it, it expands. If you don't use it, it contract. So if you send a child to school, that's why education becomes very important. We are all in an educational institutions, and we are, all of you are, especially privileged that our capability expand by attending classes, participating in various activities, not only academic but extracurricular activities, make the campus alive. I saw, father was taking me around the campus, and so many SDG, activities that you are already involved. So before activity, after activity, the campus itself changes, right? So because of your involvement, and that is how we expand the capability personally as well as a community and for this institution as such. There are various aspects of, so I call it in a book I wrote, the title is From Economic Development to Human Development. So until the 1990, we were concentrating on economic aspects, per capita income, GNP, GDP, but we realized in spite of increasing wealth, why there is such huge inequality, why the poverty is increasing. Increasing wealth, but poverty is increasing. It doesn't match together. So people ask questions, should we focus on economic aspect alone, or is there something more to it? And they came up with the new idea called human development. Human development, it simply means human beings at the center. That's what India should do, that all our development should be human-centered. Every person, even the child born today, should be valued, respected, every child. And if that is not being done, we don't call ourselves developed. That is the most important. Japan, that's one of the most important thing I cherish so much. They respect people, whatever level you are. The respect they give to anyone is amazing. That is something. It's very difficult to to learn. It should be inherited. It is there in them, and that aspect. So that is the human beings at the center, not incomes. We have a lot of classifications and things like this. People are the real wealth of a nation. Do we really think of it? People are the real wealth of a nation. If they are real wealth, as I said, put every effort to make this particular person very important. You are so important. A child dies, it's a top news. In an accident or a car accident, or everything is a top news. So people are, always made aware that you are so important, we are sorry that you are left us. That sort of a feeling and empathy. People are the real wealth of a nation. The most critical ones are the ability to lead a long and healthy life. As I said, longevity. A child born today, how much he would live. And that is, the average life expectancy in the world is about 80. So 86, this one. And for India, we are still in the 70s, in that range, right? So how to make, so why people should live a long and healthy life? The other side is the social security issues comes. But then, you are losing a person who is skilled very young. And that is a loss for the economy also. So that's why people should live a long and healthy life, to be educated in order to have your capability expanded, to be educated. So if in the millions of children out of school, I know we have the children's right to education, RT. I also made a study for one book to see what is the impact and things like that. Some states doing well, some states not so. So to be educated. So our objective was to put all children in primary school by 2015. We have not reached that level. And a decent standard of living. Not asking for a luxurious life, but a decent standard of living for all our human persons. So the human development ranking, Japan is around 17. You can look at SDI, you can look at the India human development ranking. I have not given here. So from these various theories of economic development, focusing on incomes, on human development, focusing on various 3 variables of longevity, education and decent standard of living, this Millennium Development Goals comes in. That is the theory behind. So that's why they want to eradicate 8 goals adopted by the United Nations during 2002-2015. All these are focusing only on developing countries. These goals are. So when we come to SDGs, you will see it is including the the developed country also. So here most of these are in the United. You can go into 2015 United Nations the MDGs report. It gives a full summary of how much we have achieved in all these things. So in 2015, when we achieved certain objectives, certain amount, but are we going to achieve more? Or is it going to, are we going to stop it there? And therefore they decided to, think about it. And I like Chanakya's this phrase, before you start some work, always ask yourself 3 questions. Why am I doing it? What the result might be, and will I be successful? Only when you think deeply and find satisfactory answers to these questions, go ahead. Once you start a work on something, don't be afraid of failure and don't abandon it. People who work sincerely are the happiest. And I think your campus is a witness that it looks very happy campus. So after the 2015 MDGs, we come up with the global goals, SDGs. There are 17 global goals, and first of all, they are, our objective is a set of 17 goals for the world's future through 2030, backed by a set of 169 detailed targets. In the other one, there were only 60 targets. So it is not only the targets. Okay, when you join the university, your goal is to graduate. In order to graduate, you need to have certain number of credits, and that are the targets here. You have 169 targets, and then you work on 2 credits each, and up to you get it, then you graduate. That is I look at the goals and targets agreed by all the world's nations on 25th September 2015, and that is how SDGs has become the central, at least development agenda right now. What is new and different about the 17 SDGs from the MDGs? First of all, it is universality, universal. It includes everyone, all nations, all sectors, everyone is a partner. The last goal is, partnership. So all of us are partners to it. Not somebody is going to do it. We are partners. Are we doing our part? And that is the characteristic of universality. The second one is the integration. Each goal is integrated to the other. So we cannot achieve one and leave the other. So we need to, look at like that, the things like that, integration. The third one is transformation. Our lifestyle has to be transformed. So how, especially people in developed countries, keeping their own lifestyle, asking developing countries to change, it doesn't work. Our model becomes somehow their lifestyle, and we are imitating. So unless they are able to change their lifestyle, this transformation in a global scale has to take place, and that is not really happening at this moment. Everybody wants to have more things. So there are 6 elements in the SDGs: people, dignity, prosperity, justice, partnership, planet. So these are all part of the elements in those ones. So there are 17 goals, and each goal is important in itself, but at the same time they are all connected. So each goal is important, but at the same time they are all connected. So in whichever sector you are in, you take it seriously, but at the end we achieve this. So why do you want to set goals? Setting goals, what is the importance? We call Millennium Development Goals. We call the Sustainable Development Goals. by defining our goal more clearly, by making it seem more manageable and less remote, we can help all people to see it, to draw hope from it, and to move irresistibly towards it. So that is the meaning of setting goal. All people, all sectors are into it. So now the whole world, at least from the development agenda, SDGs are the agenda before the whole world, not only just before us, before the whole world, and they are setting that agenda. So what really matters for the future of humanity? We know by destroying this planet Earth, we cannot live. However development we make, we may not be here to enjoy it. That's why we need to protect. We are already experiencing various negative side. This was the Japan in 1945 for 1950. The Tokyo, where I live, it was like this. My senior people who always tell there was nothing. After bombing, you heard of Nagasaki, Hiroshima, but Tokyo also. All they bombed after Second World War, but their willpower, they said we will make it, we will come up. And today, if I look from our campus, we see this is the Tokyo today. So this is what we need to aim at. So there will be problems we face, but how we can rise from the ashes, this phoenix, the story, right? So you rise from the ashes and you can create. Not only our cities are becoming more and more like this, but everywhere. So the Japanese miracle economies, not only in cities. First when I went, Japan, I traveled a bit, and the important thing is, the infrastructure, the facilities that everyone has, and provision of everyone. That sort of a miracle they have done there. So when we look at, India and all the countries, in order to reach a developed state that we are aiming at, today Luxembourg has got more than $1 million is their per capita income today, 1 million. Think of India's per capita income. We are around $3,000, right? So that is the gap. So when will we reach? I don't want to reach 1 trillion for every, if we can reach, fine, but we have a huge population. But at least, as I earlier mentioned, a decent standard of living, at least about $10,000, if we can put as a target by 2047. If we can put a target that all Indians will have an income of at least $10,000, that would make our life much more important. We are already Japan worried. India will overtake Japan in a couple of years. In GNP, Japan will be probably fourth. India will come. Now India is fifth, so we will come one step ahead. So in per capita, but their per capita still is $40,000. In total income, India will overcome Japan, GNP. But in per capita income, we will be a developing country. We still have $3,000. That is what income terms when you talk about it. Most of the countries. China is getting closer to 10,000 already. That's why they are forging ahead. And so if India wants to be in that level that we are aiming at, is good vision. But what are the criteria that we need to put? Look at all the goals and see, is all our children in school? What is the quality education? And all those matters. But what I am saying is, without looking at the per capita is important. Not that we have not created wealth. That's why we can overcome Japan also. Our total income is increasing, but the problem is inequality. Inequality. So how to handle inequality? Why such a lot of wealth? Why such a lot of poverty, inequality? And so that is the area you need to look at it. I'm just skipping. So the global inequality of opportunity, not only wealth, but the inequality of opportunity in today's world is the consequence of global inequality in health, wealth, and education. Health, per capita income, the number of years that you can. As I am talking, every 3 seconds, one child die in our world. You know the data. Every 3 seconds. So total number of children below 5 dying during this 1 year. When you look at it, they say every 3 seconds, one child dies. That is the health inequality. The wealth, the income, as I already shown, I will show again. Education. Still there are more than 100 or million children out of school. And that is the world in which we live. It is not who you are, but where you are in the various categories of living conditions. What sort of inequality that we are facing. The world's wealth disparity. There are 0.7% own more than 1 million per capita. It includes in India also. There are very wealthy people, as you know. 0.7 to 8%, about 100,000 to 1 million. But more than 70%, less than $10,000. They are all in the developing countries poor. So you can look at all this data, and based on the data, you argue where India is and what should we do in order to achieve the objective of 2047. Again, when we look at gender gap, so the various, they say none of us will see gender parity in our lifetime, and not likely will many of our children. That's this is a global gender gap report. You can note down and go and check global gender gap report, a 100-year gap in order to achieve a gender parity. And these are all in this report. Its infographics are very, very interesting. They have also some criteria: economic participation, education, health, political empowerment. So these are all there, and Japan in gender is lagging behind. Not that they have the first two, they are very high. The 2 and 3 very high. 1 and 4, they are lagging behind. So according to this report, they are 111. So it is not good. So they want to change that, and they are trying to bring nowadays called work-life balance. The new phrase, that is. So they are trying to introduce that to and trying to increase. So we speak about sustainable development. I'm sure those who are in development, you already know the concept. It has been brought about by this Brundtland report, and where she defined sustainable development as another theory behind the sustainable development goals, meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. My time is up. How many minutes more? 10 minutes. Okay. So this is the present. You have to ask what is our present generation and their needs, and in order to achieve meeting the needs of the present, do we have to compromise for future generation, for our children? Will they have something left behind? And there are, these three various aspects, various understanding of sustainable development: the social aspect, the environmental, and the economic. So how can we create a healthy and environmental scenario? Human health, sustainable development, and we protect the environment. So if we can keep that balance, then sustainable development is achievable. I always think, last week I was in in Gujarat, in some of the tribal areas, and I know the difficulty of life they are going through in India. So we need to keep that sort of a kind of a balance where the environmental protection, are we taking it seriously? Or sustainable development, can we talk to people where there is no electricity or no water, things like that? So to whom can we address sustainable development if you have not meet the basic necessities of life? And so simply it is not important to repeat the word sustainable development, but to understand to whom can we address sustainable development. I think for developed countries, sustainable development is an important aspect, but for developing countries, we need little more time for economic development also. So consumption of consumption of renewable resources, state of environment, sustainability. So these are some of the environmental sustainability when you think of it. Okay, so I want to show some of the from there you go into a kind of livelihood framework, where the sustainable livelihood framework, where you look at various aspects of what we have been talking about, the human, social, physical, financial, natural, all these various aspects to strengthen the sustainable livelihood framework. This is also a theory that we are using nowadays. So always pushing out the various capital that we have, human capital, natural capital, all these, how we can slowly increase, pushing out the areas of assets. So now I will go into Japan for the next 5 minutes. This is Japanese flag. Their what do you call, parliament is there, their assembly. So every country nowadays publish their reports, sustainable development report, and they are more or less doing quite well. Most of the things. Red is only reduced inequality. All other ones, they are more or less, they will achieve, or they could achieve. That is where I am amazed at Japan, how they, during MDGs, they did not care much, but during SDGs, they came out very much. All the trains, when you travel, you can see inside, outside, they publish like this, SDG train, SDG goals. So many ways they are trying to explain to people. The awareness, increasing the awareness of people about SDGs. That is very important. So people are becoming, even the TV ads, everything they connect to some SDG goals, TV ads. So that people who watch, people who travel, they always come to know it. It's all in Japanese. They explain it very well, and so many ways they are trying to. This is inside the trains. They are putting it like that on the advertisement areas. So if you travel in the train, you will at least notice in your travel this SDG type of things. So this is one way to increase our awareness, I would say. So the SDG goals. Then in our own universities, what we are doing is, I'm sorry, is it going forward? Okay. This is the university in Sofia, what we are doing. In Japan, there is a group of colleges that come together as the sustainable development universities, and these are some of the, where am I? Yeah, previous. Okay. So this type of SDG, goals awards, they give it to, students who participate in this type of activities, and this is our Sofia University. In our own university, how we SDG and 17 goals: economic, environmental, geopolitical, societal, technological, and we have tried to focus on some of the areas where we could take serious involvement. So every Jesuit university has this motto: men and women for others, with others. And Sofia, we are bringing the world together. We have a lot of foreign students come to our campus, almost about about 2,000 foreign students. So we try to bring a lot of students into campus. Activities of UN Global Compact, we are part of it. Office for the Promotion of Diversity, and Sophia University Human Resources, United Nations Principles for Responsible Investment, and organizing United Nations weeks during the United Nations Day or things like that. We have autumn and spring semester. We have a couple of weeks where they, a lot of programs are organized every semester. Sophia program for sustainable futures. That is, we have, envisioned 10 new departments. All until now, in Japan, all medium is in Japanese. So we had a few English medium, but now we have expanded it into about 10 new departments where we can have all classes taught in English. So foreign students can come and, take the courses without knowing Japanese, and the program is known as Sophia Program for Sustainable Futures. And basic skills for humanitarian support services. Because Japan is a very, natural calamities, lot of tsunami, what do you call, the earthquake and these type of things, so very much. So we need to be resilient always, all these things. So the, branding projects, education and research activities again, related to SDGs. These are some of the ones we are doing now. And so international cooperation studies, we started in 2020 in order to prepare people for international organizations, United Nations and international organizations. So specialized subjects in those type of areas, and professional studies we are beginning for adult education, for the evening college, those who are graduates. Now in Japan, nobody believes just a degree, 4-year degree is enough. They all come back, they want advanced course. So we are now providing professional courses for those people. We already had, community colleges, but now we are, redesigning it into professional studies program. So this is our web page. If you want to see what we are doing, you can have a look at Sophia web page and you can see. So all this SDG was brought out into the Christian discussion by this Laudato Si encyclical by Pope Francis. He visited the Sophia campus, and we had the opportunity to meet him there. I also visited him in Rome also. And so this environment development, these are all issues we all know, but do we speak? So this is our own, to speak, to see, to hear. So once again, we become more sensitive to the people and their needs, and let us be active partners in achieving sustainable development goals. These are some of the columns I have written in Japanese for the SDGs, and thank you for the invitation you sent to me. Thank you very much, and great having you here.
I'll take you down for a couple of questions, and then they can arrange. Yeah. So any couple of questions we'll take, because we have the panel discussion soon to begin. Anybody from the crowd? Yes. Kushali.
Good morning, sir. It's an honor to listen to you live. Sir, I would like to ask that, would you like to share a piece of advice to us youngsters on how we can create a better place for our country and for the world, given the environmental degradation that is on the rise? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, it is your world. You sit together, you plan it out, you design. There is no other way. Last week, I brought a group of students from Sophia University to certain parts in our country. And they were raising funds in Japan to send children into school. they send 1,000 children into school. It's a small student-centered NGO. They have been doing it for last 50 years. And last 25 years, I have been part of it. So I take them, they do not know what they are raising funds for. They don't know the children. See, for them, they are closing down their schools because they don't have children. And so I bring them every year. 1 year to India, 1 year to Philippines. So we support 2,000 children to make sure that children educate. I personally believe education is the key. And I think young people should sit together, plan it. We cannot change the whole country. Your surroundings, what do you want to do? What you are passionate about. Is there a group that is passionate about planting trees? Go and plant trees. Why do you wait? If you want to give clean water, provide clean water. There is technology available. There are startups. The government wants young people to begin. So it is little bit more innovative. We are too timid, I think. We don't want to take steps. We are in our comfortable zone. Forget about it. The world is waiting for you. There is lot of big chances and things there. So you need to shake up little bit more and be agile and vigilant, and thank God for all the blessings that you have received, and it is our responsibility to respond to the new world. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that illuminating and thought-provoking keynote address. The manner in which you illustrated the various statistics on the neighboring country's economic journey has been definitely going to ignite the thoughts, relentlessly inspire us to work towards the development and sustainability, especially the resilience which Japan has showed. Your comprehensive analysis of the theoretical foundations of SDGs and the Japanese perspectives has undoubtedly deepened our understanding and enriched our perspectives. I now request Reverend Father Reuben Gerumin, Vice Principal, to please felicitate Sir with a token of gratitude.
Before Father Raymond gives the memento to Father John Joseph, I want to personally express my profound gratitude to Father John Joseph. He has been traveling from Japan for last 1 week. Just an email to him. We will be soon, today we'll be meeting also, MOU college with Sophia University, for which we are taking the initiative, and Father very gracefully accepted our invitation to be physically present with us, and we will have a couple of meetings with him to take our college, affiliate ourselves with Sophia University. And I'm personally grateful to you, Father John Joseph, for your visit. Father John Joseph has been from the foundation of this particular institute called St. Xavier's College, 2010, when the first principal, Father K.P. Matthew, was here. Father is the one who started that publication journal, and yesterday he asked me, inquest, impetus is continued, Father, and you were the one who put the seed for that journal, and the seed is converted into a bigger plant and a tree, and it is continued. And thanks for that initiative, Father John Joseph. And please give him a good round of applause for his availability. Father Raymond, kindly honor him with the memento, please. Come down.
Following this insightful keynote address that has undoubtedly ignited our minds and hearts, it is now time to delve deeper into the themes and ideas brought forth by our esteemed speaker. I welcome you all to the panel discussion session of this international conference, where we will engage in an enriching exchange of perspectives, insights, and solutions on envisaging Viksit Bharat 2047, governance, entrepreneurial, social justice, gender and health, and cultural aspects. In a rapidly changing world, the concept of Viksit Bharat goes beyond the economic growth. It encompasses social equity, technological innovation, environmental sustainability, and cultural richness. It's about creating a nation where every individual has an opportunity to thrive and contribute meaningfully to the society. Before we proceed, I request all the panelists to kindly take their seats on the dais. Let's welcome a warm welcome to our esteemed guests. Continuing with the spirit of sustainability, I invite Professor Father Xavier SJ to present a green sapling as a mark of green welcome to Dr. Vinish Kumar Kathuria. Thank you, Father. Thank you, sir. I request Reverend Father Raymond Kerubin, SJ, Vice Principal, St. Xavier's College, to present a green sapling to Professor Pradeep Tikha. Thank you, Father. Thank you, sir. I request Father Amal Das, Dean, Research and Conference Convener, to extend green welcome to Professor Rajiv Sajaria. Thank you, Father. Thank you, sir. Now I invite Dr. Madhu Sharma, Director, XIMI, to please felicitate with a green sapling to Dr. Tannen Neil Lincoln. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. I now invite Dr. Atika Kelsey, co-convener of this conference, to please welcome Dr. Shruti Sivaraman with a green sapling. Thank you. It is my privilege to introduce the chair of the session, Dr. Vinish Kumar Kathuria. Dr. Vinish Kumar Kathuria, Director of Institute of Development Studies and an alumnus to NIT Kurukshetra. Sir has served as professor in charge of Bank of Baroda Innovation Center at IIT Bombay. He was a senior researcher at the University of Colorado, USA. He has over 120 publications in various international journals. With a wealth of experience and insights, Sir is uniquely positioned to guide us on this journey towards a developed India. We are honored to have you with us, sir. We welcome you, sir. Our second panelist is Professor Pradeep Tikha. Professor Pradeep Tikha is a renowned academician, translator, and literary critic who has authored several books and more than 60 papers, articles, and reviews on literature. Sir is also an editor-chief of international journals and has also served as professor and head of the Department of English and Director of International Student Affairs at Mohanlal Sukhada University. We welcome you, sir. Professor Rajiv Sajaria is a person who is currently associated as Dean and Professor with Atal Bihari Vajpayee School of Management and Entrepreneurship, Jawaharlal Nehru University. He has been Dean, Chairman of the Special Center for E-Learning, He has extensive teaching and corporate experience of over 24 years. We welcome you, sir. Dr. Tannen Neil Lincoln is an assistant professor and postgraduate coordinator of the political science program at St. Joseph University, Bangalore. His research focuses on political regimes and distributive politics in India. In addition to his research endeavors, he is deeply committed to teaching and mentoring students. We welcome you, sir. Dr. Shruti Sivaraman, major domains of her work involve strategic development for managing dementia care among various clusters, cognitive assessment and diagnosis in elderly, supportive interventions, supportive therapy, counseling, and grief management. Ma'am is a renowned trainer in the field of mental health and caregiving. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Without much ado, I now hand over the mic to the chair of the session, Dr. Vinesh Kumar Kathuria. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm extremely thankful to St. Xavier's, the father, and Yash for inviting me here. And we have a very illustrious panel, as you have, the names have already been read out. Now, who doesn't want to be part of a developed country? So everyone wants to be part of a developed country. Most of us who have traveled abroad, the moment we step into those countries, we realize how far we are from getting developed. But the moment we start thinking of growth, or we want to be developed, then many issues come into our mind. The first one is equity. Then comes the equality. And the third one, which comes to our mind, is environment. And then there are many host of issues which come to our mind. And all are very, very important. So you can have a high growth, what China has achieved in last 20, 30 years. But then you see they have a ghost towns. They have a lot of environmental issues. So which comes to our mind automatically. Now, I still remember in 90s when we were going for liberalization, then LPG became a big phrase. So liberalization, privatization, and globalization. And then globalization means if you go to any of the developed country, you can't distinguish A town from B town. All look more or less same. All have similar kind of food habits. If you see that, there will be McDonald's, there will be Burger King, etc., etc. So malls will be identical, but it means that many of these towns, they lose their identity. But do you want that kind of development? Do you want that kind of a growth, etc., or not? So this is very interesting panel. I will not spend too much time on this. So we have four distinguished panelists. One is Dr. Pradeep Trikha. He is a former dean, Mohanlal Sukhadia University. He is visiting professor at University of Münster, Germany. He will be speaking on culture, arts, and literature. And then we have Dr. Rajiv Siraya. So he is a dean, Atal Bihari Vajpayee. On my left, Dr. Rajiv is sitting. Yeah. So he is dean of Atal Bihari Vajpayee School of Management, Jawaharlal Nehru University. And he will be speaking on entrepreneurial aspects. And then we have Dr. Neil. He is on my right. So he is assistant professor, St. Joseph College, Bangalore. He will be speaking on governance. And to my extreme right, we have Dr. Shruti Sivaraman. So she will be from the Christu Jayanti College and Bangalore. So social justice, gender, and health. As you can see that, so this theme of this panel discussion is very, very rich. And it covers all the aspects: cultural, art, literature, entrepreneurial aspects, governance, social justice, gender, and health. So I'll start with the extreme left first, then I'll go to the extreme right, and then I'll go to and we'll end with governance. I think that is the pattern I'll be following. So each speaker will be given 8 to 10 minutes. And then when we have all the speakers spoken about their relevant issues, then I will try to summarize whatever is there. Then we will open it for question and answers. My job is much easier this time because last time I was a panelist, so which means you have to think a lot. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Dr. Pradeep Trikha.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Friends, dear students, faculty members, my purpose of coming to this conference is twofold. One, of course, one of my very dear students, Dr. Atika Masih, invited me. I'm thankful to her. The second purpose is that I'm already working on a larger project of literature and aesthetics. I have a very strong feeling that when I talk about this topic to my students and to my colleagues, they ask me, why in the world of technology you are talking about humanities? And my response is, why not humanities? Can we really live without humanities? Can we really exist without culture, art, literature? It gives us the lifeblood. And I have a very strong feeling that what Einstein wrote when he was there, that imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress and giving birth to evolution. If we understand each and every word of this, who is saying this? The man whom we still reckon on, Einstein. His literary writings are far more touching and more human as compared to his inventions, discoveries. People may say that he invented the hydrogen bomb or something, but he also regretted that why at all I made such an invention which can destroy the humanity. So, in order to comprehend art, culture, and literature, India has been always the home for abundance. We have so many cultural manifestations over last thousands of years. We have been told that our civilization is 5,000 years old. No, it is far more older than that. And it has a space for every other culture. It has a space for every other religion. It has accommodated over the centuries. And I'm sure all of us feel that we are not just what we are today, only the part of one religion. Being a Hindu, I have some habits of mine which take me or incline me towards other religions also. I respect them, I honor them. I live with those habits. I share food, literature, culture. And that is the reason why I have loved, intuition more than reason. If we live with intuition, we will realize that what Amir Khusro said several years ago. I will translate it for you even in English. Khusro darya prem ka, ulti waki dhar, jo utra so doob gaya, jo dooba so par. If I have to translate it in English, O Khusro, the river of love runs in strange directions. One who jumps into it drowns, and one who drowns gets across. That is the spirit of culture India has inherited. He only added few things to it. And these are, for me, they are like the lifetime learnings also. Inclusivity, love, compassion. And I feel that coming to this premises of the college, I realize this is the micro vision of Viksit Bharat, and Bharat will be Viksit or not by 2047, but surely this is how the development of a nation also should be epitomized. I have several other things to share with you. I think we all know something about Mirza Ghalib. मोहब्बत में नहीं है फर्क जीने और मरने का, उसी को देख कर जीते हैं जिस पर दम निकले. And further he says, हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले, बहुत निकले मेरे अरमां मगर फिर भी कम निकले. I think that whether Ghalib or Khusro, They could have said these things only in India. Had Ghalib not been born in India, had he been born in Iran or Iraq or some other country of the world, he could have never said all this. Because he had assimilated the culture in which he was born. And one is always more comfortable in the culture with one is born in. No matter, people look towards India for everything. We have showcased to the world, and I think even UNO has agreed upon celebrating World Yoga Day or International Day for Non-Violence and so many other days. This is what India has offered. This is what Indian culture has offered to the rest of the world. And I feel that one more thing which I would like to share with you is the romanticism with one's own imagination. That is very important. Its ideals of the creative subjective power of the artist have always fueled the artists around us. Whether these artists belong to any ism or not, whether they belong to left or right or center. Fortunately, Chairman sir told me that I am on the left. Well, I am not on the left exactly what left means in political parlance. But still I feel that sometimes, we talk emphatically about rationality, scientific temper, and things like that. But truth is that the knowledge lies in intuition, feeling, and rationality has also allowed us to come to terms with unfiltered information. And unfiltered information has actually given a setback to the human aspects of humanity. We are more glued to the technology all the time. What about emotions, feelings? If you are sitting around the dining table in a family and all of them are looking into their mobile, then what are you doing? You are actually reducing the communication. You are killing the communication. Many things can be sorted out there, whether it is your psychological health issues or mental issues or any other issue, as a matter of fact. So I do feel that to bring about harmony in the world, we need to look into culture, art, and literature. Because harmony is the core. It is the string which makes any artwork timeless. I have quoted two poets before you. I think they are timeless because of this. And it is at the level of abstractions that we find the melting point of the romantic in different forms of words, even numbers, colors, chemicals, and even musical notations. They have a dancing gestures. Life is meant to be celebrated. It should be lived like a dance. It is not a calculation or what do you call a balance sheet that where I equalize, give and take. I'm reminded of another poet. And I think all of us, at one point or the other, we talk about Bulle Shah. Look at the way what he has to say. He points out that taking a poison and yet fearing its ingredients, what is the point in falling in love, yet fearing its consequences? If you give your heart in hope that your love may be returned, what is the point then, Bulle Shah, giving your heart at all? And if I quote him saying, some of you might understand this, I have just given you the essence of what he said, but what actually he said. Bulle Shah, zehar vek ke pita te ki pita, ishq soch ke kita te ki kita, dil de ke dil lain di aas rakhi, ve bulya eho jiha pyar kita te kyun kita. So, ultimate is love for humanity. And your understanding of art, culture, and literature enhances this. It makes you, I think in the keynote address, Sir was talking about sensitizing. Sensitizing the humanity is one of the important SDG goals. It sums up everything. And I think these poets and their works of art and their other artists or musicians, they try to assess the deep-seated recesses of our inner being. That is important. You know, similarly, I am often reminded of Kabir. When we enter into the territory of learning, education, I always tell my students this also. ये तो घर है प्रेम का, खाला का घर नाही, शीस उतारे भूमि धरे, तब इस घर में आही. Now, the essence of this is that what affects you the most is your ego. शीस उतारे भूमि धरे. That this head of yours brings ego in you. Ego of knowledge, wealth, what not. I think if you do not do this, do away with your ego, you cannot come to an educational institution. You do not qualify for that. If your ego is higher than your master or your teacher, what will you learn? So all these things are very important, and I think above all, as I said, that harmony is the core of everything. And there is a beautiful quotation from Tagore. In the morning, Principal Sir was talking about Tagore very briefly. My mind had nothing in it but hot vapor, and vapor-filled bubbles frothed and eddied around. No forms were evolved, there was only the distraction of movement, a bubbling up, or a bursting froth. Now, thus, I would like to conclude I'll rest my case with, again quoting Ghalib, who talks about harmony. ईमा मुझे रोके है जो खींचे है मुझे कुफ्र, काबा मेरे पीछे है, कलीसा मेरे आगे. Kaaba is of course Makkah and Kalisa is temple. You don't have temple elsewhere in the world in that century. Now you have everywhere. So he talks about religious harmony. He talks about tolerance. He talks about, what is important for us. Not only today, not only yesterday, but even for the tomorrow of India, that is Viksit Bharat. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. People are already mesmerized. Yeah, so can we live without art, culture and literature? So answer is obviously no, we can't live without that. And obviously imagination is more important than how we rationalize the things. So now it's very interesting. So I think there will be a lot of questions to you once we end this. Yeah. So the next speaker is Dr. Shruti Shivaraman. Yeah. So she will be speaking on social justice, gender and health. Yeah, please.
Good morning. Not sure, like if, according to Professor's empowerment, the talk will I be able to do justice to the kind of mesmerizing talk that he was able to deliver. But from the perspective of a mental health professional, or from the perspective of a psychologist or head of the Department of Psychology, where to start with gender deviation. So when I look at the student strength itself, psychology being a field where there's a lot of nurturing that is required from the people itself. We do have a department of 1,500 students only in the psychology department, where it is more than 1,350 are females, and the faculty member of 38, of which 35 are females. So I do take proud in saying that women do not lack anything in the current generation, and by 2047 what India plans to, as per the SDG goals that Professor or Father John Joseph was talking about, gender inequality in some way we are already fighting through, or we are already through. It's just that in a few areas that we need to look into, in terms of where women cannot be empowered by leaving out men or by ignoring men on altogether. So the awareness, the education that we instill, probably adding on more values, talking about violence against women or even abuses, marital rapes and things like that, discussing about it to the gender would be something, or more curriculum associated value-based education that could help the other genders, including, it's not just about men. When you talk about gender in the current scenarios, if you're looking at, that's the third gender that is coming up, or there is, we also do talk about cisgender, so we do speak about the queer members, so we do speak about the multiple other types that are coming up, and which people becoming more and more aware of what is needed in the community. These empowerments are more essential, accepting them as them, understanding the uniqueness in each individual with the authenticity or the authentic identity that each individual would possess. So we do believe in saying that, or every human being for that matter should understand that every individual is different, and that difference is what makes human beings beautiful, or that individual differences is what we need to accept in the first hand. So if you are labeling somebody, saying that this is what you are, the label is not the person. The person is the person, or the characteristics or the behaviors or whatever, the knowledge, the values that the person present is what we need to look for, rather than considering the label that we assign to them. So if I'm, for example, stating somebody that he is a person with depression, that shouldn't be the, there are a lot of stigma still. There's a lot of stigma associated to reaching for help, reaching for care systems, or reaching for supportive interventions. But at the same time, it's changing slowly, that at least not to the psychiatrist or the psychologist, people would approach a neurologist in terms of seeking interventions, or interventions in terms of medications. In certain places, if you're looking at the triage of treatment itself, you do not have access to mental health professionals in many places. Probably urban places talks about having many mental health professionals, but in a place like India, that's one of the priority that we should look into, that having more mental health professionals, including the rural settings, which would talk about dealing with mental health promotive interventions for the youth, which is very highly essential, or I would say that it is inevitable for the growth of the country itself. Mental health has to be put into priority, and post-COVID, when you're looking at isolation issues, stranger anxiety, high rates of rejection sensitivity that the ground faces, higher levels of personality changes that people go through, or even including health issues like younger cases of vascular diseases, including cardiac arrest in the young generations or even in the middle-aged people. These are something that people are not considered as. So the vascular diseases which are not being treated in the younger phases leads to cognitive degeneration in the elderly, which leads to something as, we would, on an umbrella term, we would say as dementia or Alzheimer's as a common term. But are we looking at it in the early 30s, or are we even looking at screening people because we are worried that, what if I'm found to be diabetic? Or what if I'm found to be having higher cholesterol levels? Or am I even looking for my B12 levels? Or am I looking for my the hemoglobin levels in the system? Or what is my thyroid levels in the system? Until and unless we don't look into these primary health aspects, you're not going to look into major aspects like depression or bipolar disorder, or even looking into the brain damages or the cerebrovascular diseases that people possess. So it's important that we pay attention to smaller things like what levels of common blood parameters that we have, so that people are able to work towards overall well-being. So when I speak about well-being, it's not just about the physical parameters. When you look in the mental parameters, mental health status assess, happiness, which in layperson term we speak about, in psychology we would say it also as subjective well-being. So the term itself says that what is happiness to me? Probably a tub of ice cream would be happiness to me, but it might not be the same for Dr. Neil, or it might not be the same for father. So, happiness would vary from person to person. Happiness could be listening to a favorite music. Happiness could be spending a spiritual hour, or happiness could be taking a stroll under the moon. So we need to identify what gives us the inner peace, and we need to identify what would lead us towards those well-being, which can be worked out. It's not a complex task for individuals to work towards their well-being. Probably in certain points, if we need to take support from others, then it's to be taken. Or if it is something that as self-care interventions that we look into, people do practice journaling, or even trying to be like practicing gratitude, practicing more of forgiving. These are something that we need to promote as towards empowering the nation and individuals. It is like xenophobia that is highly present, and we're not looking into growing a nation with a lot of xenophobia. We're looking into build world which is built with peace, which is built with more of harmony. So forgiveness, when you're looking at it's not just for the others. When you're looking at forgiveness, it's for our own peace, like letting things go so that there's lesser revenge. So it starts from the individual. As long as you start working on the individual values, individual qualities, and slowly it percolates to the family, and that leads towards the community as such, or the nation as such. And without that, we might not be able to build a nation that is completely empowered or sustainable on its own with the higher levels of mental health and overall health as such. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, bringing out several of these key issues into the limelight. Yeah, growth is important. We may become developed, but then we might have to encounter with all those mental health status, subjective well-being, etc. Now, 2009, someone other day mentioned me, in India today there was an interesting survey. So where they looked into all those employees who are working for these BPOs. And they clearly found that, so whole night they were working for the BPOs. Morning they were stopping at 2-3 medical stores, these young guys, and they were buying sleeping pills, which had an implication on anxiety level, on hypertension, on fertility. So again, growth is very important. We should grow. There's no doubt about it. But we have to take care of all these other things, which will become a key problem in near future. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Shruti. Now coming to the entrepreneurial aspects, we have Dr. Rajiv Shiraya, Dean, Atal Bihari Vajpayee School of Management, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Please.
Good morning, one and all. Professor Vinees, who is moderating this panel discussion. Thank you, Professor Pradeep Trikha, to begin with the cultural and very literally part and the heritage that India is carrying. And then after the psychological aspects and what the most we are facing the problem of anxiety, depression, and that is if not cured. Whatsoever we are planning for this country to achieve in 2047, when at the rate of 100 years of independence, we would like to become developed Bharat. Developed Bharat is somewhat like Viksit Bharat, and to achieve the status of developed country. Yes, of course, this is the mandate. But this is not only the mandate by achieving the numbers, figures, in terms of GDP, in terms of per capita income, in terms of gross national income, in terms of development parameters, but beyond that. We are highest populated country in the world. We are enjoying demographic dividend since 2018. When we say we are enjoying demographic dividend, it means workable population in any country, if exceeds the non-working population, it is called that the country is enjoying demographic dividend. So we are having more than 65% working age population, that is from age of 17 to 65. It become a dividend when we can deploy that workforce in a constructive manner in order to achieve the country's overall broad goals and objectives. If otherwise we could not do it, it become curse. We will have challenge of unemployment. We will have challenge of taking that youth on track. So violence or some sorts of indisciplined activities, unlawful activities, because if one will not rightly engaged, there are chances that he or she will be engaged otherwise. I'm happy to see the youngsters here. I have been told that BBA, BCA, MBA, MCA, there are many programs you people are running here, and this Viksit Bharat 2047 mission has been launched by the Prime Minister, and it is now becoming the day-to-day activity of different institutions, organizations, and public at large. What we have to do, we are not government driven institution, but why this has been become a buzzword these days, and the ecosystem is evolving. When we say ecosystem, so it is mandatory everywhere to keep this slogan, this logo of Viksit Bharat from 1947 to 2047. Funding agencies like ICSSR are funding conferences, international conference like this on this theme. Jan Dhan Yojana, Mudra Yojana, stand-up schemes, Skill India, and many other programs led by the government is meant to ignite the entrepreneurial, enterprising, inherent qualities within the youngsters. Because government jobs are very limited, it is only 7 to 8%. If we club all sorts of jobs in the private sector, daily wages, it is not more than 20, it is less than 20%. So more than 80% of working population need to be employed otherwise. So the options are self-employment, the options are to become entrepreneur, to start any enterprise, options are to involve in cooperatives, and whatsoever where you can become job provider, not the job seeker. You can make the part of solutions and you can contribute in enhancing the opportunities, not on that part where you will be the exploiter of opportunities which are available. How it can happen? why this Viksit Bharat is required? So, see, when some of our relatives visit any country, say Nepal, so it is a happy moment because we are having our value of currency more than that. Similarly, of Pakistan, or Bangladesh, and like that, these countries. But if you are visiting US, so it is somewhere around 1:80. And next week, I am going to Russia. I will be having some of the MOUs with some universities, and similarly, as I am taking part here in a panel discussion, one keynote address. But when I find that what is the currency conversion rate, so it gives me a pleasure because it is almost at par. What happened then after 20 years, 25 years, you will be visiting different countries and your currency conversion rate is, your currency, your rupee is high valued than right now. What will happen that many countries will keep visa free for you. What will happen then? Many countries will have most preferred nation for Indian. This will be a pleasing experience. So this is what enterprising, entrepreneurial work culture in our country is essential. What type of enterprising are coming up? They are agri-based, agrotech, they are fintech, they are edtech. We know that AI, machine learning, cloud computing, virtual reality, augmented realities, 3D, artificial of things. There are different technologies and we are adopting it. ChatGPT and all that. So India and Indian mindset is like that. We adopt things very fast, and this is my appeal to all of you. By adopting this enterprising temperament, because it is not something that can be learned. It comes from inner to out. Nobody can force you to start your enterprise. But if maximum number of youngsters who are coming out from the universities, colleges, they are graduating, if somehow with the support of university system, their training and placement cell, their corporate interface cell, the Atal incubation centers, Atal tinkering labs in the schools, these are working more than 7,000 in numbers. If successful startups, that has been registered last year, more than 1.17 lakh, and we are having more than 100 unicorns. So this is the success story India is having. We are having a very successful rate of conversion of startups that is say registered and that get success. Yes, of course there is a failure rate high, but being fail or considering ourselves as a failure is different. We can fail on instances, but when we conceive the idea that we have been failed, that become our failure. So inventions, innovations, newness, nobility, connecting it with the technology is the new way of doing things, and that will lead to this developed Bharat at the rate 2047. I understand my time is limited, and if the chance will come, I will speak on different aspects of the topic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rajiv. Yeah, one should think beyond GDP, because GDP, I don't know how many of you are aware of that. So GDP term, when it was coined, that was at the time of Second World War, when John Maynard Keynes, he wanted to tell British government how war can be financed, and then GDP term came into the prominence. But now most countries are looking beyond GDP, because GDP cannot give you how we are consuming our resources, because it is only talking of man-made capital, doesn't talk about natural capital, which we utilize to grow basically. Now, India is having a very peculiar situation in a sense that it is having a demographic dividend, where a substantial portion of our population they are young population. Now this should not become a curse, basically. So demographic dividend has to be made use of that. How you can use that? Because government cannot provide all the jobs. Then all those schemes which government has initiated is basically to ignite entrepreneurial spirit into the people's minds. And rightly pointed out by Dr. Rajiv that less than 20% jobs are in the private sector or the public sector. Remaining have to be solution provider, not solution seeker or job seeker, basically. So yeah, so now with all these things, we will go to the governance, because nothing will work without active or good governance. So we have Dr. Neil who will be speaking on governance.
Mic check. Good morning, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference, the Jesuit community, and my good friend Father Xavier for extending an invitation to me to speak and participating in this conference. I'm quite excited about this particular theme that focuses on Viksit Bharat 2047, because as a political scientist, I have been observing how the current ruling dispensation has focused on the idea of development and how it has very shrewdly connected it to the idea of policy making and regimentization of policy as well. In this regard, my talk today focuses on catalyzing futuristic governance, navigating the pathway to progress in Viksit Bharat 2047. The analytical lens that I use to deconstruct this theme put forth by the Government of India emerges from my experience at the grassroots level, especially in states of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and Gujarat. So the lens that I use to understand this particular theme, which is more macro, big in nature, is through a prism which is micro and meso, right? In that way, we get a sense of how the idea of development is put forth by the government and what disjuncture it has from the perception that people have at a very micro level, okay? So to begin with, first, we need to understand the idea of development itself, right? If you look at the literature on the concept of development, we get a sense of how this concept is Western in nature. It tries to capture economic growth most importantly, right? Economists in the audience will know this better. In the context of India, when we speak of development now, right, in the contemporary era, we are largely looking at the socio-economic profile, right? Where development is not only about these economic tangibles that can be captured through certain indicators or categories that are ascriptive in nature, but rather focusing on how society at every level transitions and how there is also a trickle-down effect of the economy on the quality of life, right? We have a lot of scholars who yesterday spoke of this, so my talk will borrow from the data that they have presented here as well, right? Coming back to the idea of development. Now, in my engagement with a lot of policymakers, what they have argued is that in order to understand development in India, we need to have a very grassroots understanding of how people perceive policy making, right? Because when they view the regime, the political party in power, the argument that they make is that the government of the day is supposed to govern us, right? That is the primary task of any government. It is supposed to govern us. So the only tangible element that we as a citizen have is to relate to this entity called the government. So it is important how the government transacts itself with the people, which is the citizenry, right? It becomes important. So the first aspect of governance that we need to focus on in order to enhance this idea of Viksit Bharat is transparent and accountable governance. Now, we observe that in political economy literature, whenever we speak of governance, we are focusing on good governance. It was a term that was used by World Bank economists. And the whole picture behind good governance was to look at it as an outcome indicator, right? How regimes of the day function and how well they are able to deliver service to the citizenry, so that when we have elections, when we have an assessment of the government, we get a sense of how well they have utilized the resource and how will they have transacted a particular service delivery, right? Now, this is not just an academic point. It has a lot of significance for the citizenry at the micro and meso level. Because the argument that the citizenry poses is that if I, as a citizen, am unable to get access to the resource distributed by the state, what is the point of having the state? What is the point of having the government? So in this regard, when we look at the policy documents released by the government of India in relation to Viksit Bharat, it categorically mentions that we need to focus on citizen-centric governance, how we can reduce corruption, how we can ensure that technology plays a greater role in transacting policy, and most importantly, public-private partnership, right? Now, this is a discourse that takes into account the very neoliberal setup that we observe in and around the world, especially in the developed world, right? Where the focus is on not only how the government is working, but also how it takes into account different economic actors. And what we observe in India after 1991 is that the market has, increased, the market has been freed up, and economic growth is now pushed forward by the market. So the government of the day is saying that when we look at governance as a particular aspect, it's not only about how the state is able to deal with the people and initiate policy, but also look at how we can involve market players, which is a very significant point in attaining the goal of Viksit Bharat. Next, we focus on decentralization and empowerment. Professor Somanath yesterday did speak about the PRI reforms that were introduced in our country. And I echo the same sentiment that Professor spoke of yesterday. In India, what we observe is that given the terrain that we reside in, right, the ethos of every society tends to be different, right? And what we see here is that when people relate to themselves at a micro level, right, they are saying that we need to have certain tangibles that we need to locate, right? Now, if you look at the Panchayati Raj system in our country, it focuses on bridging the gap between genders. It talks about participation, it talks about service delivery, a whole range of things. You have a plethora of literature that focuses on that, right? What does the program of Viksit Bharat, or the envisioning of Viksit Bharat, tries to do is that it tries to enhance these institutions that are already available to us. So take, for example, in the state of Gujarat, we have an interesting concept called Samras Grams, right, which also promotes governance at a very grassroots level, and also taken into account by Viksit Bharat, where at the Panchayati level, we argue that if you are able to come to a consensus on how many people are contesting elections or who could be the leader in the Panchayat, we will give you an additional incentive to ensure that your Panchayat functions well. So this has actually led to greater cooperation at the grassroots level, which means that you have greater decentralization. That is what we need, right? So when we are talking about a country that is focusing on an aspect of development which tends to be highly macro and broad in nature, we shouldn't really forget how we can also ensure that at the grassroots level, institutions can also echo the same sentiment, right? And that would also help us come up with a model that is unique in this regard, right? The third and broad point that I would like to focus on is the model of development itself that we are promoting through Viksit Bharat 2047, right? Since 1991, what we have observed is that there have been two important discourses of development in our country. The first discourse has revolved around socialist development, where since 1947, India christened itself as being a socialist state. But if you look at its policies, it has not actually been socialist. Take, for example, social welfare spending, right? It has been abysmally low, right? Our understanding of socialist development has only been ownership of state resources. And the regimes prior to 2014 have actually failed in delivering any kind of tangible, outcomes when it comes to development of social and welfare indicators, right? Now, after 1991, we are speaking of a more neoliberal model of development that promotes entrepreneurships. It has created ecosystems in our country where the state, through different credit lines, through a whole range of policies, has allowed people to participate more in the market, right? And that has, in fact, reaped tremendous dividends, right? And that is what is absolutely necessary. Take, for example, a state like Uttar Pradesh. Historically, it was placed under a Bimaru category, right? It was an acronym, 6th state. But now if you see, it has given this projection in 2025 that we'll have a $1 trillion economy, which is great. They've already started investing in infrastructure. They're creating more jobs, a whole range of things, right? And that is what cumulatively pushes forward and drives this particular model of development that also promotes this United Nations agenda of sustainable and inclusive development. We have always argued that in our country, when we speak of development, it has just touched a small section of society. But now when you're speaking of a neoliberal model of development, which is more competition-based, which is more merit-based, it is a whole section of society that has, been able to access this model of development. So all in all, the point that I'm trying to drive across is that when we envision governance, right, vis-a-vis Viksit Bharat 2047, we are including a whole range of things. And by doing that, we also reinvent our understanding of development. We re-engineer our understanding of how institutions can be molded. We also rethink about the law, that we have in order to ensure that we meet the objective of Viksit Bharat 2047. So with these observations, I conclude my talk. Thank you for your attention.
Yep. Thank you very much, Dr. Neil. Yep. Yep. Development is a Western concept. This is how Dr. Neil started, and so far we are not looking into the socio-economic profile of our population, which is being looked now, and how government transacts. That's very important. So there has to be more transparency, accountability, and technology is a good enabler in that. It ensures many of these things. They are done they are done automatically. Now, two key aspects of this governance is, one is the decentralization, and he gave a good example from Gujarat. And the model of development, basically, earlier we were having socialist development, but not on paper only. So I think Dr. Neil is saying that post 2014, it is not on paper, it is really happening. There is a new model of development. So we have all the four panelists who gave very interesting thoughts on different issues of when we become very developed. Now, one question always comes to my mind: should we develop or should we grow? Now, because growth is relatively easy, so where you can build roads, where you can build bridges, where you can have new airports, you can borrow from rest of the world, or you can print a lot of money and you can grow. But development is very tricky. And then also a lot of issues will come. Should we develop sustainably or not? Now there also we have to think, the moment we think that we want to develop sustainably, should it be weak sustainability or strong sustainability? Because these distinctions are very, very important. The moment we try to distinguish weak versus strong, then our pathways will be very, very different. And it is not very easy. Again, I think in most classes when I ask this question, do you know what is weak sustainable, strong sustainable? So I do not get a very good answer, because people are not clear what is the weak sustainability and what is strong sustainability. And unless we know that, then only we have to put in our resources accordingly. And I always think Gandhiji's talisman is very important. Whatever policy we start, whatever thing, we have to see the poorest of the poor person, whether how he or she is going to benefit. If anyone who is the poorest and the poor is not going to benefit, then the policy is not very good, according to me. So with this, I'll open the floor to the questions from the audience. So let me see, because there are very thought-provoking discussion we had so far. So it is open to the floor. Any question you can ask? Yeah, please. Mic is there, or? एक ले लीजिए माइक यहाँ से, हाँ प्लीज. I would request you to kindly introduce yourself also, so that people know.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Purvi Miratwal. And my question is actually from both Vinish sir and Shruti ma'am. So, this Viksit Bharat concept, this Abhiyan has been, mission has been launched. And recently I came across an article in the newspaper regarding the happiness development model. So, ma'am, I just want to ask this, that what do you think that the recent World Happiness Report, India was ranked around 126 out of 137 countries. So what do you think that these, the two concepts of Viksit Bharat and the happiness development model, can they be aligned together? And what could be India, what can India do actually to have this development model that is more towards the removing inequalities and towards overall holistic growth of the nation, rather than just particularly focusing on the growth aspect?
So if you're looking at the happiness model, like when I was addressing before, I was saying happiness can vary from person to person. Right now in this group of scholars or academicians, we speak about happiness, or we speak about GDP, we speak about higher education, or we speak about AI. In such a scenario, we do have people in India who do not know what is higher education. We do have people in India who struggle to get one meal a day. We do have people in India who really struggle to express their emotion, or even to identify what are their basic emotions that they go through. So without all these basic amenities, or there are people who do not have a proper shelter for themselves, or people who do not have adequate clothing for themselves, or people who do not have another person to share their emotions with, or we are still people, or we are still a nation which has a lot of people who struggle to face, or who struggle to meet their ends on daily basis, or probably even on an hourly basis. So the happiness ratio that we call as, if I ask you, how happy are you today? I wouldn't be able to say that based on, the whole day as such. My happiness would change per hour, per minute, per, seconds. Probably that, a teacher scolding me might affect my mood, or a student not performing might affect my mood, or me. I'm not able to think at certain times because of a mental fatigue. That affects my mood. So working on overall happiness is a huge challenge, which starts from the availability and accessibility to the basic amenities, which is, and then I would put in another word, which is about affordability. Am I able to afford an education that is costing me 25,000 per month, or 25,000 per year? Or am I even able to reach to a school which is providing a free education to myself? Or am I able to reach to a school which provides free education as well as free meals in the afternoon? Or at the same time, if the child is working in a farm, will the family be supported because of that? Or even if there is no family, the child's labor is what is going to provide the child with the food and the clothing, then that becomes happiness to the child. So India has not reached a point where we could work out on this basic amenity, and that is one of the major reasons why we stand so low in our happiness ranking. It's to reach there, we have to cater to the not to the accessible, affordable criteria or the strata of the people in the community. We have to reach to the community which is, which has no accessibility, which does not look into affordability, which does not have, basic amenities like safety and security to themselves. So that action has to come up through, the governance and the entrepreneurship, so the startups that we are talking about. When we say AI, it is the human intelligence that creates artificial intelligence. So without human intelligence, artificial intelligence is not going to develop or not going to pursue even it has to be destructive, then that's because of the human intelligence that works out. AI is nothing but an artificially created brain neural network into a system which is programmed. So you're talking about that on a higher level, but what about the intelligence that is existing within the lower strata or within the rural population of India? When we look into or develop those options as 2047 envisaging Bharat as a Viksit Bharat in that area, then we will be able to reach that happiness index that the community or the globally that we are talking about. Maybe it is challenging for now. That should be probably something that the government has to look into.
Should I answer? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, happiness is a state of mind. She has rightly pointed out. I am happy because my neighbor is sad. And now you see, if you want to be happy, then you have to sacrifice a lot. And we have a classic example of Bhutan. So Thimphu, which is the capital of Bhutan, they said that people are, because they were the pioneer in happiness index. Now also a lot of work is being done in Thimphu, in Bhutan. Number of cars which are allowed to ply on the roads of Thimphu are limited. Only 3,000 cars, which means they recognize that if other people have to be happy, then you have to check your carrying capacity. And within the carrying capacity, you have to work. Now, can we do that? Because then if you start doing that, then you will be sacrificing growth. Then we can't be developed. So these two do not go side by side, according to me. I mean, I have not come across any country's model where they are happy as well as developed. Now, there are Scandinavian countries. We often take an example from Scandinavian countries, but these are very tiny countries. Whole of Delhi is bigger than Norway and Sweden in terms of population. So now you see, and their population density is so low that they can experiment with many things. State is very active because you are a small number, but the moment you have a large number, I don't think you can be happy easily. Very cutthroat competition. Everywhere you see that, whether it's entrepreneurial skills or whether it's in class 12th or when you want to get a job, etc., not an easy thing. But only thing is, again, if there is any model, then we should look for that, because that will be more everlasting than our regular means. Yeah, thank you. Any other question? Yeah, please. Kindly introduce yourself, madam.
Sir, I'm Denny Shaji. So my question is to Vineet sir. It's just like we have been talking about development goals, and then suddenly you said like development and growth are, better if we call it growth. So my point is, like, don't you think like the development goals right now we have has contradiction to the sustainable goals? Why I'm saying this, because I feel like we are moving forward, and then because just we talk that GDP growth has to be higher and quick as soon as possible, and like that is the growth idea that we have. And suddenly when we are working for that it should go quick, we are actually in contradiction to the sustainable goal. That itself, the development goal itself is not sustainable, because we are asking move fast, quick up. And even in technology that we are talking about, we are moving away, and then we are creating problems, and then talking about the core things that we have left behind. So my point is, what according to you is development goal? Is it that we can go back to basics and actually work on sustainability? Dr. Vineet.
I thought I am a moderator. You see, again, development is like a race. So long back, when I was doing PhD, then someone told me, so you are in a race. There are two motorcycle drivers. Each one has to carve his or her own path. Now you have to see what are our strengths. Our strength lies in our diversity. We have huge, say, informal sector. We have huge people dependence on agriculture. We have to find our strength there. There is no other continent which has desert, which has snowy mountains, and which is so rich in a lot of diversity. Now we have to develop according to that, what we have. But if you go in a rat race, then end will be disastrous. There will be 20-30% people who will be able to manage, because they are rich, they are better, they are more qualified. But what will happen to the bottom 70-80%? That we have to think. So it's not an easy. We have to, again, we have to keep on introspecting the path which we are following, whether it will lead to that ultimate aim or not. So like that. It's not an easy answer. I don't think. You have to go back. Again, we have to go back. Again, there are very interesting models within the country also. You know, like again, woman empowerment, one issue came, the Seva, I think they are pioneer in that, or Bangladeshi group. So how they could do that? But again, we have a failure also in microfinance also. SKS microfinance, which was a big failure. So now we have to see, we have to churn out from these failures and successful, and then come out with some solution which may not be replicable across the country, because our country is very huge. Like Orans, which we have in Rajasthan. These are our water bodies or community things, which were surviving for ages, but suddenly they are disappeared. Or most of the cities which are having a lot of floods these days, if you see, whether it's Bangalore, whether it's Chennai, because they were on a water body. Now we have to go back. I mean, is it really sustainable or not? We have to question ourselves first. Then we will get an answer. You see, we will be reaching we will be becoming a developed country for sure, because our population is rising. If our population is rising, that much food will be needing, that much clothing will be needing, and we'll be needing shelter for them. So that we'll achieve, no doubt. But whether it is really sustainable or not, we have to think. Yep, please.
Ma'am, Shruti ma'am, I would like to ask you a question. Like recently, psychology has picked up, and whenever there is some illness, some problem, people say that we are with you, we are going to help out. So every time we say that we are going to help out, you have some issue. Are we doubting the defense system that we already have? Because I rarely see my grandmother or my grandfather undergoing this. And most often people say that, there have been problems existing before, but it is now being diagnosed. So my point is, are we doubting their inbuilt system, which I believe that everyone has, maybe even for the physical illness, but then mental illness, I think we are born with that power within to work out. And every time we tell them that we are going to help out, we are doubting their inner ability to come out through by their own self. So are we doubting them, their ability? Thank you.
So, you're looking at the aged population, it is about the progressive neural degeneration that they have. There were problems, like you said, there were challenges associated to caring, and there were challenges associated to providing support interventions. But we had joint family systems, or we had people around who were caring for each other, and which wasn't highlighting the concerns of the elderly in the same manner. Or these challenges were not really challenges at that point, because there would be somebody or the other who could help them, even associated to their bowel and bladder movements when they become dependent on things. There were people to assist, and you would get aides who could help them. The carers or the supporters would be there. Right now the challenge is, even if you want to pay, you don't get a carer or a support system. You don't get people, and you have, thanks to COVID and all the isolation that people had to go through, and the Instagram reels that talks about, mental health is so much priority, and everybody starts giving advices about what you need to do about mental health. And people don't think about the inbuilt, what we call as the coping mechanisms that every individual had. We don't tap our coping mechanisms in the right way. And everyone's coping mechanisms might vary in the type, might vary in the intensity, and you have that inbuilt. It's just that right now the current generation needs a little more external push to identify what is your coping mechanism. In the olden times, people were able to tap their coping mechanisms, so the living conditions itself would strengthen their skills. We do teach in the college now to identify what is your strength and weakness, whether it is management course or whether it is psychology. We put that SWOT analysis and say identify your strength and weakness. Older generation, when they have to go into farming, they will have to identify from their physical skills to mental skills, how much of the crop that you are able to build in. And if you don't get enough of money from that, what is your coping mechanism to live under? what would you do to sustain for the next 6 months if you are not getting enough income from this? People discuss in the family about challenges. Current parenting, do not discuss these challenges with children. Children has to be provided with whatever, or anything that they ask for or whatever they need to. So they're not discussing challenges, they're not building in that, emotional regulation in people. So either the child is extremely impulsive or the child is extremely withdrawn. And that is what they take forward to the classes or their working environment or to their living, which is highly causing troubles on their relationship flourishing as well. And trust is highly regretted. People are unable to feel trust with each other, that the mistrust is increasing or the integrity issues that are raising. Everything points back to saying the way in which we are dealing with each other or managing each other's emotions and identifying each other's emotion. So one of the reasons would be to have support system within our own families, which we lack in now. And another is that, too much of dependent on somebody who is completely unknown, thinking that they are the only one who could tell me or who could support me, than trusting people who would actually belong to us or within our own family system. And we kind of de-alienate ourselves from the value system that we follow, which is making it very difficult for us to care for whom we should actually care for.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I am Father Raymond. I am a teacher of Hindi literature. So my question is to Dr. Pradeep. I was enthralled and I very much resounded with your talk. Now you talked about or quoted from Ghalib, Kabir or Bulle Shahji. Now in the present scenario of India, taking into consideration the social, political and religious situation now, if they were here, what would they say? Whether it is Kabir Das ji or Ghalib ji or even Bulle Shah ji. Thank you.
Thank you for that very relevant and pertinent question. I think any poet or any writer, when he's saying something or writing something, of course, they had, we start looking for their meanings when they are not there. But we are actually, they say something for humanity. And humanity doesn't change over centuries. So had they been here, they would have said the same thing. Because, the mental and internal fiber of a human being is framed according to the circumstances one is living in. I'll try to answer this slightly in another way. You saw that this landmass, what we call South Asia, is a landmass which is a civilizational cradle. And any civilizational cradle has tremendous amount of diversity of nature. These poets and writers, whatever they have said, they have not only said in context of the social circumstances, but also what nature delivered them to say about humanity. Their wisdom was coming, I have emphasized on intuition. Their wisdom was coming from there. So it is very difficult to say that had they been born in this country now, they would have changed otherwise. Nature still is in abundance with us. But only thing is that good people have stopped voicing their voices. If they were voicing very vociferously, Kabir was voicing against anything. Whether people listened to him or not, that was not the goal. The goal was to say something which is useful for all times. We can't say Shakespeare is irrelevant today. No. The poet may die, but the art lives on. The artist may die, but the art lives on. Still, Leonardo da Vinci's very famous painting, I saw it early morning in the guest house. It's deeply coded. And somebody in 20th century writes a novel on it, Da Vinci Code. So how we make the things relevant to us, that is more important, rather than had they been born here right now, I don't think their fiber or mental setup would have changed had they seen all this, what is happening now. Because whatever they were saying it through their intuition, through their understanding of nature, through their perception of the society in which they were born. And again, everybody is putting together one single message, that is humanism, love for humanity. Irrespective of cultural diversities, irrespective of any kind of diversity, they are doing this. And that is the reason why I quoted them. Because I feel very strongly that still as a nation, this will turn us into real sense what we call growth or developed or whatever. Acceptance and inclusivity is preconditions to all conditions, all other conditions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we can have some closing remarks from all the panelists. So we'll start with Madam. Yeah, please. Just, 30 seconds.
To look at collectively when we are talking into the systems of growth, it would start with whether we reach till the whether we achieve all the sustainable goals that are being stated, or whether we work towards the overall nation's development. It should start from the individual development and nurturing qualities and building in every positive emotions and individual to look towards a nation or look towards the well-being of the individual, which lead towards a community's growth and overall to the nation's perspective itself, and to being able to differentiate between the myths and the reality, or to differentiate between the ideal and the what is not necessary to be cultivated into the future, would be something that will be really helpful for people to look forward in terms of development, or looking unto the envisaging Bharat has a completely Viksit Bharat by 2047. It would start from within the self of the individual itself.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Neil. Yeah.
As a summation, I think it's important to observe that when we speak of Viksit Bharat, it is about the individual vis-a-vis the collective and vice versa, right? The government or governance, whatever term we use, is merely a medium, right? With the theme of Viksit Bharat, I think it's important for us to understand that the blueprint that we have been given is highly organic in nature, and the task is on all of us to ensure that this vision, this blueprint is taken forward. So how it moves forward, only time can tell, but we definitely have a role to play. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Rajiv.
Thank you. I would like to have privilege to say a couple of minutes, because I could not have a question. Reason of that, because we are not having that entrepreneurial culture, and since we are not starting anything, so if we are not doing anything in any field, so we have no doubt and no query. So I'm just connecting few dots. One is the developing countries or the growth that may not go side by side. That is the opinion one came about. But I believe that the country like India that have Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam as a its driving force, and in G20 also we have seen that one word, one opportunity, one earth. So that we are working on. Development is prior issue and growth is the secondary. When we develop, so we can develop our inner strength, we can develop more mature to deal with the issues, maybe the emotional quotient, maybe the spiritual quotient, maybe the IQ level, maybe the interpersonal relations, and how to deal with the problems that deal with the most of the psychological problems within individual. So when we develop, we develop ourselves as a better individual. Then growing is the natural process. By the age, our height grows, our weight grows, and similarly it happens. So even at the Bhutan, the happiness index or all that, India's this goal of achieving developed Bharat by 2047 is not only developing on the numbers, but it is having all these inherent qualities that has been rightly pointed out by my earlier speaker, Professor Joseph from Japan. Sustainable development goals, all these sustainable development goals and MDPs, Millennium Development Goals, basically they have been envisaged by India centuries ago. We are working on that. These our goals are now highlighted in different way. So India's this journey towards achieving the status of Viksit Bharat will cover all these concern of the audience and the honorable panelists. This is what I can conclude. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Pradeep, yeah.
Well, I am audible. Thank you very much. I am honored to be the part of this panel, and I am really thankful to all the organizers to have invited me. It is very interesting. But I do feel that it is humane which is still most undecipherable phenomena. To be humane, and we have to take into consideration that how we can merge the diversities, or how at least we can, I mean, this is, I strongly feel that India is a land where creativity finally leads to immersion. Creativity leads to Visarjan. This is the land which has offered us. I have been to several places, but I have never found where creativity culminates into Visarjan. This is the philosophy of this land. We dream, we think, we create. I mean, if you look at Durga Puja idols, how they are created, mesmerizingly they are created. Or as a matter of fact, any other festival which we celebrate. Take it to the peak and then leave. This is what life teaches us. So, it goes beyond the moral and immoral shutters of life to be one with only common and unifying morality of love, which stands as a constant gravitational pull. It is love in its different manifestations. Whatever I have said, that is what it means. And finally, again, I mean, Ghalib is such a mesmerizing poet. He has always pulled me, sucked me. Jala hai jism to dil bhi jal gaya hoga. Kuredte ho rakh aakhir justju kya hai. So this is what Indian culture is all about. So with these words, I thank you all for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that was a befitting end to very interesting panel discussion. So on behalf of organizers, I thank all the panelists for giving their viewpoints. And yeah, task is difficult, but we can achieve it, hopefully. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for discussing and delving into the multifaceted dimensions of Viksit Bharat, from economic policies to social initiatives, from technological advancements to cultural conservation, from growth of economies to social justice, and from gross national product to gross national happiness. We have explored through a fruitful discussions the holistic development of our nation. These perspectives are invaluable in shaping a collective vision. I now invite Reverend Father Professor Xavier SJ to present a token of gratitude to Dr. Vinish Kumar Kathuria. Thank you, Father. Thank you, sir. I request Reverend Father Raymond Kerumin, SJ, Vice Principal, St. Xavier's College, to present a memento to Professor Pradeep Trikha. Thank you, Father. Thank you, sir. I now request Reverend Father Dr. Amal Das S.J., Dean Research and Development and Conference Convener, to provide a moment of gratitude to Professor Rajiv Sajaria. Thank you, Father. Thank you, sir. I now invite Dr. Madhu Sharma, Director, XIMI, to please extend a token of gratitude to Dr. Tannen Neil Lincoln. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. I now invite Dr. Atika Kelsey, co-convener, to present a token of gratitude to Dr. Shruti Shivaraman. Thank you, ma'am. As our discussion draws to a close, it is my privilege and pleasure to extend a heartfelt note of gratitude to first and foremost to our distinguished panelists, who have generously shared their knowledge, research findings, and perspectives on various themes and topics throughout the discussion. Your contributions have ignited new ideas, fostered meaningful dialogue, and expanded our understanding of critical issues. I would like to also extend my sincere gratitude to all the delegates and participants who have traveled from far and wide to join us in this intellectual exchange. Your active participation, engaging questions, and enthusiastic involvement have been instrumental in making this discussion a resounding success. Remember, the journey towards Viksit Bharat is not just a destination, but a continuous endeavor that requires the commitment and collaboration of every citizen. Let's embark on this journey together, inspired by a vision of prosperous, inclusive, and sustainable India. I would now request all the participants to enjoy a tea break of 20 minutes in the North Quadrangle, and all the students outside the auditorium, and come back sharply at 12:15 and connect us for the technical sessions. We have parallel technical sessions: Technical Session 2, Policy and Governance in Conference Room; Technical Session 4, Business and Finance 2047 in room number 37; Technical Session 5, Indian Economy in room number 40; Technical Session 7, Nation and Narration in room number 41. Now it's a time to capture this moment. I now call all the dignitaries, faculties, and participants to join us for a group photograph.
Students, please have your break. Please be present for the valedictory lecture. Do not disappear. That is something the best I have kept for the end. Okay, all of you must attend the valedictory lecture. Now the group, you have your technical session go on as per your subject.